Hi there. Thank you so much for your attention. My name is Adrian Valverde. I'm part of the candidates that is following and pursuing this position for LTV as a project coordinator. Basically, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and I'll go straight to the point. Basically, I found out several findings. Besides the good ones and the bad ones, there are some areas of improvements that we can find. Basically, first, in the project manager operations, I found out there was a lack of planning. Basically, there were a lot of things being added during the sprint and being executed during the sprint that were not planned at the beginning of the sprint. Planning is essential to make sure that what is being executed is going to be accomplished and done at the end of the sprint. When there is something that is being planned, the team is going to have the real scope, the real objectives, and the real timeline of the tasks that are going to be executed during the sprint. If there are added tasks, should be fixes or any added feature, this should be spoken priorly with the team, or the team should have knowledge of the things that are up front or that are coming to the team project priorly, just to load in those jobs to the Jira board. Basically, the team is feeling there is a lack of details, and if you see the tickets, there's a lack of details, and the filling of the Jira board is not properly. There are no details, there's no data, there's no task owner, the mentions are not okay. The story point, which is the effort in hours the team is taking, are not filled correctly, which makes a feeling that the people is just uploading the tasks just to say, okay, the task is uploaded, my teammate will handle. But as a team, as part of a collaboration in a project management situation, the project manager should do the daily follow up of those tickets in the daily Scrum calls, which is a 15 to 30 minutes call where everyone joins, the task owners may join, and the project manager should call them out name by name, asking if they have any stoppers or blockers. Most of the tickets were not labeled correctly, which caused confusion. And also, there's an area that is really important, that the QA was not being followed correctly. There was not I think what the feeling was is that QA was not taken into consideration during the planning. First of all, if there are going to be changes of the scope and those areas, that should be prevented during the planning. So basically, the project manager should plan ahead, make sure there's a timeline, for example, a Gantt chart, making sure that all the development areas are being followed correctly. But as well, it's really important that the project manager has the full understanding of the project at the beginning and make sure to communicate the risk plan to the client, which means, hey client, if there is something that is not communicating at the moment that is going to rise during the execution or development of the project, this may affect the timeline, the budget, and the execution itself. It's really important to communicate that, because we can have other options. For example, communicate that this may be taken care of in another sprint, or that this may be taken care of as an added feature, and this may, for example, include a commercial. So, for example, these type of things are key things that the project manager should encounter at the beginning of the sprint planning. I believe there should be a sprint backlog and also a sprint planning and pre-sprint planning, which would eventually help the team develop, for example, an ownership of the tasks that are being assigned. Part of it will be making sure that everyone in the team has the full understanding of the details and the needs that they're going to have during this execution. For example, one of the pain points the developer had was that there were too many added features during the sprint. They were overbooked, which means they were over the velocity, which means they were over the capacity they should be. So, for example, if it's on the legal procedure of a working hour in Costa Rica, it would eventually be 40 hours a week, which is 5 days a week. We don't work on weekends. So basically, part of it will be understanding if the task owner is going to have a vacation, if he's going to be sick, or if there's any area that you can take into consideration prior to scheduling those tasks, right? Basically, the developer team mentioned that most of the planning was not being correct, and that's the feeling they have. Part of it will be understanding in the project management office what are the process and the protocols that could be implemented. For example, a a task priority backlog, making sure that everyone is joining the daily calls, making sure that there are rituals, for example, a midday checkpoint, 15 minutes to make sure that everyone is updating their Jira board cards, making sure that everything is correctly assigned, making sure that there are no commitments that the people has made, for example, the key account manager or the basically the product owner is, for example, those type of areas are really important to identify ahead, just to make sure the project is going to go in a straight line, right? Also, there was a successful areas. Documentation is a great area of achievement for the team. Having things documented made a great and facilitated for things to be handy for the developers and also for the QA team. But also, I feel like there is a feeling of family and also a feeling of community and synergy between the team. That means they have a long time working together, so that is great. Teams that have great communication, interpersonal speaking, is going to create great projects. The execution is going to be easily because you know how to communicate with your team, and that is going to help you. Part of that will be as well, for example, areas of improvement overall will be communication. The team needs to be free and feel free to communicate any delays, any issues or doubts or questions on the daily calls. The project manager should be able to work as a filter between the client, the new scope or new features, and let them know in advance what is being added on the sprint. It's really important that the project manager has this filter position to make sure the team is not going to be affected in their KPIs internally, so they can follow the process of the project correctly and the timeline. If there's any new feature or add-on on the process of the project manager should create a new project charter, a timeline, and understand the user story so they can follow up a great timeline and execute correctly. Part of that will be to the board and modifications of the process, and the tickets will be filling tickets correctly, making sure the board is being filled daily and updated daily. And also to the process will be make sure that every day early in the morning before the day starts, there's a daily call with all the team members, making sure everyone understands what they were working yesterday and what they're going to be working the day after, exactly today, and make sure everyone is on board with the task and the priorities they need to handle. Also, planning with the velocity and capacity, since that was one of the pain points the project manager mentioned, is to understand the capacity of the team, making sure no added tasks are going to be loaded in the board unless there is an acceptance of the team or the leadership of the project. If I was in the retrospective of this team, I would eventually ask for feedback on things that we can do better as project managers, but understand as well what can be improved in communication, what can be improved in documentation, what can be improved in my planning, in my backlog, in my Gantt charts, in my project charter, in my hour control, in my effort control. Those areas being brought from the internal team to myself will eventually improve my execution and how I deal or, for example, project or timeline the projects for the team. Making sure we are a team and have this collaboration would eventually help us to improve our communication, our execution, our Jira board techniques, and learning of these mistakes would eventually create a new perspective of how to execute new projects. Part of this, I did saw there was a lot of variation, and this is on my Excel file that I will share, between the planned and done. It's important, and again, I want to make some real pinpoint over there. Planning is really important, and making sure that the team is following up, or that the project manager is following up the scopes and objectives daily and has that handy to make sure the team is going to execute what is planned. This is going to have a great impact in the project objectives, the scope, the client interaction, and also part of it will be how the team is going to feel in the retrospectives of these projects. So basically, on overall, I would say it was a great project. Otherwise, the areas of improvement are small areas, but everything that is small would eventually create a great impact in the future. If there are any questions, you can also go back to my Excel file, review that, and let me know if there's any questions. For sure, I'll be more than happy to help. Once again, thank you for the opportunity and feel free to reach me out for any questions. Bye.